This week's episode is sponsored by Babysitter Massacre, Camp Carnage, the third sleazy slasher book in the Babysitter Massacre series, written by David O'Hanlon and created by me. It's hunting season, and there's no bag limit on babysitters. After his only child dies due to an incompetent sitter, Patton Moore establishes Camp Care. His graduates are highly sought after, and candidates will do anything for a spot. But this time, they'll wish they hadn't. Someone's brought some extra baggage for the stay, and it's up to Macy and the other unhappy campers to figure out who's behind the string of gruesome killings, while being stalked through an unforgiving wilderness full of deadly traps. As the body count climbs, old wounds are torn open, and not everyone is who they seem. Who will survive Camp Carnage? Find it today on Kindle and paperback at Amazon.com.
What's that? You want to be scared? Come with me. You will experience tales of horror, ghosts, and death. It is not recommended for the weak at heart. Listen in the dark. It's more fun that way. This is Weekly Spooky.
Hello, my friends. It's Wednesday, and you know what that means. It's time for some spooky in your weekly. I'm your host and narrator, Henrik Kuto, and this week's story gave me goosebumps multiple times, and I think it'll give you some too. But before we get to that, I just want to say real quick, number one, thank you for listening, and number two, please, if you haven't already, subscribe on whatever podcast listening device you're using or on YouTube so you can hear our stories every single Wednesday. We haven't missed one in 96 weeks, and we have no intention of starting anytime soon. And speaking of which, please stay on the lookout. Our big 100th episode special is coming right up. And if you've been with us for dozens upon dozens of scary moments, consider heading over to WeeklySpooky.com and sending us a tip or joining our Patreon so you can listen to exclusive podcasts, behind-the-scenes looks, and so much more. So tonight's story, it checks a lot of boxes for me that give me the creeps, that make me feel uneasy, and that's what the show's all about. It hits a real kind of grim fairy tale vibe that just makes me feel like a kid again, a terrified kid again. Because in life, especially in adult life, we all make lots of deals, agreements, negotiations, whether it's with the plumber or a contractor or a lawyer or hopefully something more mundane than that. But what if the deal you made was something you just simply couldn't refuse? What if you would pay any price at all, to have something you deeply, deeply desire? But more importantly, what do you do when it's time to pay the piper? And who is the piper? Let's listen and find out. Even Witches Can Cry by Charles Campbell. Rain is a funny thing. Sometimes it brings life. Sometimes it brings death. It can be seen through the lens of relief or of suffering. It just depends on when the rain comes, how hard it falls, and how long it stays. For Jillian Hubbard, the rain has worn out its welcome. It is there when she wakes up and when she goes to bed. It was a cold November rain that started 3 days ago, and it has not slowed down in the least. Jillian pulled the wool blanket from her twin-sized bed and looked to the empty crib in the corner. It had been 5 months since Clementine Rose Hubbard was stillborn. There was no Mr. Hubbard, and there had been no man in her life. Her pregnancy was a complete and total mystery. Jillian didn't know she was pregnant until she was almost 4 months along, but after hearing the baby's heartbeat, there was no way she was going to end her life in utero. She began hearing the cries 2 nights after returning home from the hospital. The cries sounded as if they came from the crib, and every time Jillian checked, the crib was empty and silent. Sometimes the crying would begin again as soon as Jillian returned to bed. Sometimes there wouldn't be another sound for the rest of the night. But the crying never stopped for good. Jillian suspected she may be suffering from some sort of postpartum depression. She remained hidden away in her house in the woods and would be there for a while. Her thick red hair was growing longer and her body showed no signs of her ill-fated pregnancy. She cut off all communication with the outside world. No internet, no cell phone. It was just Jillian, her thoughts, and the cries of Clementine. Jillian walked to the living area of her small home, curled up on the couch, and pulled the wool blanket around her. The house was cold, but Jillian always liked it cold. She liked the feeling of a warm blanket wrapped around her in a frosty room, so every room was always frigid. The rain and wind picked up its intensity, and there was the rap, rap, rap of slamming shutters at the front of the house. To secure them, Jillian would have to go outside, so she would live with the slamming. She turned the page on the book she was reading, Perennials by novelist Bryce Gibson. She found the premise interesting. A serial killer that targeted victims based on names of plants. But she was struggling to focus on the words. Then she heard the first clap of thunder since the rain began. A few minutes later, the lights flickered. A few minutes after that, there was a lightning strike, and the power zapped out. It was mid-morning, so there was enough natural light, even though the sky was dark with clouds. Jillian sighed, set the book down, and closed her eyes. For the first time since she came home from the hospital, she heard Clementine cry during the day. Jillian's eyes opened. She left the blanket on the couch, and the chill of the room widened her eyes. She walked slowly to the bedroom. The baby was crying, and it was more intense than it had been. The baby was hungry. The baby needed her mother. "Clementine, Mommy's here," Jillian whispered as she got closer to the crib. The crying continued, but softened as if it may stop at any second. Jillian could hear her baby breathing. She could hear her moving around in the crib. Jillian stopped short of getting close enough to look inside. She knew that if she did, Clementine wouldn't be there. She could hear her baby girl breathe, move, and cry. That was better than breaking the connection by looking in the crib. She stood there and spoke to her baby. "Clementine, I wish you were with me. I needed you so badly and I didn't know it. I wanted to watch you grow up, put a bandage on your knee and kiss your boo-boo, fight with you when you would get to that age, see you off to school and watch you grow into a young woman." "Clementine is here," a man's voice whispered into Jillian's ear. "Who are you?" Jillian whispered back. "Do you want your daughter back with you, in the flesh?" asked the man. Jillian could feel his hot breath on her neck. She dared not turn toward him because she knew he wouldn't be there. "More than anything, can Can you bring her back to me? Jillian asked. Clementine was no longer crying, but cooing and giggling in her crib. Jillian heard her baby giggle for the first time. I can bring her back to you, said the voice. What's the cost? Jillian asked. She knew that such an act would come with a steep price. I will claim the debt at a time of my choosing. You must do exactly what I demand within the time frame I set. It doesn't matter what is happening in your life at the time. I could ask for repayment of this debt tomorrow, or in 50 years. You must do it without question or hesitation. Do you agree to these terms, Jillian? I do agree to those terms, Jillian quickly replied. Go to bed, and when you wake up, Clementine will be waiting for you. The room fell silent. Jillian didn't look in the crib. She went to bed like she was told, and immediately fell asleep. The next morning, Jillian didn't hear anything when she awoke. She felt the disappointment of a hopeful dream shattering as she looked into the crib. There was no moving, no crying, nothing. Something on the dresser caught her attention. It was a piece of paper, and it looked official. She made out the stamp of Augusta University Hospital on top of the form. Jillian began trembling when she realized what she was about to pick up. It was an original, signed birth certificate of live birth for Clementine Rose Hubbard. Then she heard Clementine cry, and Jillian began to cry tears of elation. She set the paper down and rushed to the crib. There was a 5-month-old baby with slobber on her cheeks, kicking her chubby little legs. She was hungry. Jillian felt a trickle through her nightshirt. She was lactating. Oh my God. Is this real? Jillian lifted the child from the crib. Clementine had her features. Same eyes, nose, and mouth. Nothing to tell Jillian that there was any other DNA in the infant. You're a pretty girl, aren't you? Jillian asked as the baby was attempting to suckle. Jillian removed her nightshirt, and Clementine latched on as if she had been on the breast for 100 days. One year turned into 7, and Clementine was a precocious first grader, smart as a whip, and reading at a 5th grade level. She was curious about everything, and when she was 5, she asked Jillian why she didn't have a father. Jillian told her that her father disappeared one day and never returned. It was better than trying to explain the inexplicable. Jillian and Clementine moved from the woods to the suburbs of Ridgecliff Court in North Augusta when Clementine celebrated her 3rd birthday. It was the end of a school day, and Jillian was waiting in the pickup circle when Clementine was led to the car by Ms. Joan. Hey, sweetie, Jillian said through the rolled-down window. Ms. Joan opened the passenger door and buckled Clementine in. Good afternoon, Ms. Hubbard, Joan said. Clementine is always so well behaved. I'll see you tomorrow. See you tomorrow, Ms. Joan, Clementine said, and then turned to her mother. She was the spitting image of her. Red hair, freckled face, green eyes, and thin lips. Did you learn a lot today? Jillian asked as she drove away from North Augusta Elementary. Yeah, we had a spelling bee today in class, and I won. Clementine was beaming. That's great, honey. You're so smart. I got a movie from the library. Ms. Jones said we should watch it together. She did. What movie did you get? The Wizard of Oz? Oh, wow. That's a great movie. I watched it a lot when I was a child. Jillian looked over at her own little miracle. I'm making a pot of spaghetti and you need to go ahead and get your homework done. Then your bath. We'll eat and watch the movie before you go to bed. How does that sound? Perfect, Mommy. That sounds perfect. Clementine talked about the rest of her day until Jillian pulled into the driveway. It was movie time. Their bellies were full of spaghetti and Jillian hoped she could stay awake for the trip to Oz. Clementine was wide awake and excited. She put the movie in the player and was immediately transfixed by Dorothy, and was engrossed in the film until the house was swept away by the tornado. Her little green eyes welled in fear when she saw the witch flying by the window. She began to tremble. "Mommy, I don't like the witch," she whispered. "The witch can't hurt her. You'll see," Jillian whispered back. Clementine was getting comfortable again and even giggled when Dorothy removed the ruby slippers from the feet of the deceased Wicked Witch of the East. She was elated when the Munchkins broke into song proclaiming the witch dead. But when the Wicked Witch of the West showed up to claim those slippers, Clementine started trembling again. "Mommy, I don't like the witch. Turn it off. Turn it off. She's going to kill them all. She's going to kill them like in my dreams." Clementine screamed. Jillian turned off the movie. "Okay, baby, it's fine. She doesn't kill anybody. I didn't think she would scare you." "What did you mean when you said like in your dreams? Do you have dreams about witches?" Jillian asked as she held her daughter tightly to her bosom, stroking her hair. Clementine nodded yes, and Jillian asked, "Why didn't you tell me about them?" "I don't have them all the time, but the one in the movie looks like her," Clementine replied and pushed away from her mother. "I'm okay now, Mommy. I don't want to see that movie anymore. I'll take it back to the library tomorrow." "You sure you're okay, sweetie?" "Yes, I'm fine. I think I want to draw for a little while before I go to bed," Clementine said. Jillian was amazed at how this 7-year-old child could have a better conversation with her than most adults. "Okay. The next time you have a bad dream like that, please tell me. I don't want you to ever be frightened. I love you, my Clementine." "I love you too, Mommy." Clementine went to her room and pulled out her colored pencils and blank sheets of paper. Jillian watched her for a few minutes before she readied herself for bed. Clementine began drawing. She began carefully with the outlines. Then she used a dark gray pencil to shadow the dreary skyline. She sketched a large log cabin in the center of the paper and filled in the detail with blacks and browns. Trees surrounded the cabin. It was set deep in the woods. Then Clementine began filling in her outlines. There were 4 of them outside of the cabin, and 2 of them inside the cabin, peering out through the windows. They were witches, just like the Wicked Witch of the West. They were returning empty-handed from a hunt. Clementine drew a crimson shadow hiding in the woods. It was someone that often visited her dreams. Clementine finished her drawing and yawned. Sleep was coming and she wasn't going to fight it. Clementine went to sleep. The witches were there. Clementine was standing in front of the cabin. It was dark, just like the picture she drew, and she could see the flicker of fire through the cabin windows. Shadows were moving about inside. Clementine was afraid that she was going to be discovered. She saw the ember shadow in the woods, and it summoned her. Clementine stepped toward the window. The flames inside the cabin intensified. It sounded as if the woods themselves were cackling all around her. Clementine turned back toward the cabin. She could hear the man in the woods call her name. "Clementine, come to your father." Clementine was frozen in fear. She turned back toward the cabin, and the witches came storming out, brooms in hands. They all looked like the evil Wicked Witch of the West. Leave her! Leave her! You have no dominion here. They moved swiftly. Death is all you'll find here. Our niece is protected. Niece? Clementine thought as she turned to run to her father. He would save her from the witches. Clementine felt a rush of hot air hit her in the face as the witches took flight, bypassing her and going straight for her father. They weren't coming for her at all. Why were they chasing her father? Clementine screamed, "Run, Daddy! Run! They're going to kill you!" Clementine woke up. She could hear her mother talking to someone in the other room. She wanted to scream, but she crept silently, listened, and realized the truth. Clementine was so very smart. She went back and grabbed a special doll hidden under her bed. Jillian went to bed early and woke up early. She could see the amber nightlight in Clementine's room when she stuck her head in to make sure her miracle was still sleeping. There was enough light that Jillian could see that Clementine finished her drawing before going to bed. Jillian would look at it after Clementine woke up. She could rest another hour before she needed to get up and prepare for school. Jillian went to the kitchen and turned on the coffee maker. She clicked on the television in the living room to get the early weather report. The television flickered for a second and went black. The lights in the kitchen flashed before they went out. There was a tingle down Jillian's spine. She knew what was coming. She felt his hot breath on her neck, but dared not turn to look at him. "It's time to claim the debt," he whispered in her ear. His breath was incredibly hot, and Jillian could feel every thump of her heart. "Look at me, Jillian." Jillian stepped back and slowly turned her head. She saw the shape of a black-cloaked figure with ember eyes and sharp, pointy canines setting off 2 rows of intensely white choppers. His face was a very dark shade of crimson with charcoal gray eyebrows so prominent that they extended outward past the shield of the cloak. His crimson hands were more like the claws of a large marine iguana, with curved, sharp black nails at the end of each digit. Jillian was very afraid. She was very afraid of what she had done when she agreed to take on this debt. "Are you the devil?" she asked. "No, Jillian. I'm not the devil. I've been called many names during the history of this world. You may call me Mazus." What are you? Please don't hurt Clementine." "I have no intention of hurting Clementine, as long as you repay the debt you agreed to with no questions asked. Remember?" The demon smiled at Jillian. "I remember. What do you want me to do?" "I need souls. I need the souls of children, and I need you to get them for me. Once you have harvested 6 souls, you will be free of your debt." Mazus stepped closer to Jillian. You want me to kill children for you?" "If you ask one more question, I will just take the one that I return to you." Jillian's face was hot. Mazus was so close to her, and the heat from his skin was on the verge of burning her. It was so hot. "Leave my mommy alone," Clementine said. She was standing in the room. Mazus turned to face her. "She's grown into such a lovely child, Jillian." Mazus grinned, and the forked tongue flicked from his lips. "Don't touch her. I'll do what you ask. Just don't touch her. Please." Jillian was sobbing. "Daddy's not going to hurt me, Mommy. He's just being grumpy right now," Clementine said, and moved closer. "What? Oh my God, what did you say?" Jillian's mind flashed to a night. It was a nightmare that she never remembered, but it was all coming back to her now. A cloaked figure in her bedroom. in the middle of the night. She remembers him disrobing and laying with her. She remembers pleasure and darkness. When she awoke the following morning, she had forgotten the nightmare completely, and 4 months later she discovered Clementine was growing in her womb. Jillian realized Mazis is the one that took Clementine away in the delivery room, and he was the one to bring her back as bait, to do his unholy bidding. "Daddy, you're scaring Mommy." "She has to do something for Daddy, and then I will only visit you in your dreams," Mazis said. He didn't realize the strength in this little one. "Mommy's a witch. She can kill you, Daddy. The other witches told me so." Clementine stepped closer to the two of them. She was holding something behind her back, and Mazis took note. "She's a witch, you say? What do you think is more powerful, my love? A witch or a demon?" Mazis grinned at the little red-headed girl. Clementine's eyes began to change. They were morphing from green to the charcoal gray eyes of her father. Her skin was changing color. It was turning crimson. "A demon is more powerful than one witch, Daddy, but a demon is not more powerful than two witches." Clementine pulled the doll from behind her back. It was once a Ken doll, but she had colored it in dark red from head to toe and painted gray where its eyes were. There was a little black cape and hood that Clementine cut from a black t-shirt. "This is you, Daddy, and the witches showed me how to make you hurt." Jillian could feel something in her mind. It was whispering. "The coven is with you, Jillian. Don't be afraid. Clementine will show you the way." "Mommy, the witches weren't trying to hurt me. They were showing me. They found me in between when Daddy hid me away. They told me what we were." "Daddy, leave Mommy alone." She twisted the arm on the doll. Mazis looked at Clementine with puzzled amusement. "Your silly toys can't hurt me, child." His focus shifted fully to the witch-demon child pulling on the doll's arm. "There is no power in the doll," the witch's voice said. "It's a distraction. When he touches her—" "No, he can't touch her!" Jillian screamed and charged Mazis. The demon backhanded Jillian across the face. Her cheeks sizzled as soon as his claws touched her skin. The smell of burnt flesh rose in the air. Clementine dropped the doll and grabbed her father by his claw. Only then Mazis realized he wasn't facing two witches. He was facing an entire coven, all at once. They were chanting in unison, and you could feel the incantation setting in. It was a spell of banishment. He tried to pull away, but he couldn't break Clementine's grip. Jillian was pouring salt on the floor around them, trapping Mazis and Clementine in their own circle. Jillian and Clementine joined the coven's chant. "Cast the demon from your home. Cast the demon from your mind. Your whereabouts he will never find. If he darkens your door again, his soul will be cast to the wind. Cast the demon from your home. Cast the demon from your mind. Your whereabouts he will never find. If he darkens your door again, his soul will be cast to the wind." Mazis felt something. It was regret at choosing this woman. She was no Agnes Fields. Clementine's face turned a full, burning crimson. Her red hair was now replaced with flames, and she slung her demon father outside of the circle. He disappeared into black smoke. Clementine collapsed. Jillian rushed to her child, who had morphed back into a little girl as soon as she released Mazis. Clementine was crying on the floor. Jillian was crying with her. "We need to meet our family," Clementine sobbed. "They can help us, Mommy. They're not mean witches like in The Wizard of Oz." "We can, baby. I didn't realize." Jillian didn't know where to begin. "Let's go meet them, Mommy. They live in the woods near our old house." "Okay, let me get my broom," Jillian replied, and the two broke into laughter. "I love you, Mommy." "I love you too, my Clementine," Mommy, we need to get an umbrella. It's raining where we're going. Now that was a story that delivers a little bit of that grim fairy tale horror that I just adore so very much. It was fun, it was creepy, and my God, all the stuff with the crying baby in the crib and looking inside the crib and there's nothing there. Yeah. This is why I do it, my friends. I do it for the goosebumps. And boy, howdy, did that deliver for me, and I hope it delivered for you as well. So I hope you're all having a good week. I hope you're all staying cool, because if you're in the United States of America like me, it is hot outside. I have to shut off the air conditioning to record this show, and the place gets warm, and my very furry dogs are more bothered than even myself, and they don't have to change their shirt when they sweat through it like I do. But anyway, my friends, thank you for listening. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to come back next Wednesday for another terrifying tale. And please consider supporting us on Patreon. It's how we keep this show going every single week. And an extra big thank you to our Patreon podcast boosters, folks who pay just a little extra to have their names shouted out on every show, and that's Gino Lyons, Michael aka Sharm, Karen Weemet, Jeff and George Hilton, Craig Cohen, Rob Fields, and Kevin Fry. Thank you all so much for helping me bring you this spooky every single week. And I wasn't joking when I said the 100th episode. It's coming right up, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. And for those new folks who found us over at Overcast, I hope we scared you just a little bit, and we're getting you ready for October. Because, of course, here at Weekly Spooky, it's always the Halloween season, and it's always the witching hour. So, until next week, I'm going to get out of here and go cool my heels a little bit. So for myself, for my producer Dan Wilder, and for our composer Ray Mattis, stay scary, and we'll be back here in just 7 days. All right, talk at you later.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to find your way back next week. But for now, you are safe. Trust me.